We're all counting down the days for James Gunn's new DCU, right? But look, if you think this new Batman is going to be anything like Nolan's trilogy or Robert Pattinson's detective vibe, you are dead wrong. James Gunn has straight up confirmed that the Dark Knight of this universe is built on some of the most unique, dark, and epic comics in history. Honestly, if you don't read these, you're going to be completely lost when the future DC movies drop. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing great. So with James Gunn revealing Chapter 1 of the new DCU, Gods and Monsters, he showed us that he's going for a world that's deeply faithful to the comics. In this new universe, we are not getting another tired, cliché origin story showing the death of Bruce Wayne's parents. Instead, we're being thrown right into the middle of a crowded, crazy Gotham filled with heroes. Today, I'm breaking down 5 of the most crucial Batman comics that lay the whole foundation for the new cinematic Batman. We're talking about books James Gunn explicitly named, plus hidden storylines that shape the Bat family and his villains in the DCU. So if you want to be 3 steps ahead of everyone else before the movies drop, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and let's jump right into the first must-read comic on this list. One, Batman and Son. All right, guys, let's kick things off with the exact comic James Gunn brought up himself. He confirmed that the new standalone Batman movie, The Brave and the Bold, is directly adapted from this masterpiece. We're talking about Batman and Son, written back in 2006 by the absolute genius and legend Grant Morrison. This comic completely shatters the old cliché idea that Batman is a lone wolf. Everything kicks off when Talia al Ghul, Bruce's old flame, and the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, the leader of the League of Assassins, suddenly shows up out of nowhere. But she's not alone. She introduces Bruce to a wild, arrogant, hyper-trained, and borderline psychotic 10-year-old boy and says, "Bruce, meet Damian, your actual biological son." This is where Batman's life gets flipped upside down. Unlike the other Robins in history, like Dick Grayson or Tim Drake, Damian wasn't raised in a safe environment or with Batman's morals. From the second he opened his eyes, he was raised in dark safe houses under the most ruthless killers on Earth. He learned how to kill with mercy, wield a sword, and slice through enemies. And here's the darkest, most compelling part. On his very first day in the Batcave, Damian tries to straight up murder Tim Drake, the third Robin, just to prove he's the only worthy heir. But why is this comic an absolute must-read for the new DCU? Because James Gunn isn't going to show us Thomas and Martha Wayne dying in Crime Alley again. He wants to throw us right into the chaos of Bruce Wayne trying to be a father. A Batman whose ultimate red line is no killing is suddenly forced to disarm his own 10-year-old kid and wash the assassin instinct out of his blood. This philosophical clash between a rule-following father and a terrorist son is what makes this book a masterpiece. If you want to understand the new movie Batman, this is your very first step. 2. Batman and Robin. Alright guys, now that we know where Damian Wayne comes from, we get to the second comic on our roadmap, another masterpiece by Grant Morrison, the 2009 Batman and Robin series. This is the direct, evolved continuation of the last story, but it comes with a mind-blowing plot twist that completely flips Gotham on its head. This story takes place during a time when Bruce Wayne is missing in time and presumed dead after some massive cosmic events.
Gotham is drowning in chaos, and the city needs the shadow of the Bat more than ever. This is where Bruce's oldest and most loyal adopted son, Dick Grayson, Nightwing, steps up. With a ton of hesitation, fear, and guilt, he decides to put on the cowl and become the new Batman to fill his mentor's shoes. But Batman is nothing without Robin, right? This leads to the creation of the weirdest, coolest, and most reverse duo in comic history. Dick Grayson becomes the new Batman, and the wild, hot-headed Damian Wayne becomes his Robin. Let me break it down for you guys a bit more on why this comic is an absolute, unparalleled masterpiece, and why James Gunn is crazily in love with this exact vibe. We're all used to Batman being this dark, serious, brooding guy, right? And usually, he has a high-energy, witty, and upbeat Robin next to him, like a young Dick Grayson, to balance out Bruce's darkness. But in this comic, everything is flipped exactly 180 degrees. We are dealing with a totally new Batman who smiles, cracks jokes, has a kind tone, and tries to resolve everything peacefully. On the flip side, his Robin, Damian, is a total pain in the neck, He's dark, violent, ruthless, and constantly wants to break criminals' bones while throwing shade at the new Batman, telling him he's not even worthy of wearing his father's suit. The chemistry and relationship between Dick and Damian in this comic will honestly touch your soul. Damian, who has never understood the concept of an older brother or a real family, learns step by step under Dick Grayson how to control his rage. Dick doesn't treat Damian like a soldier. Instead, he stands by him like a caring big brother. And that's exactly what makes Damian break out of his terrorist mold for the first time and become a true hero. Together, they fight twisted, sick villains like Professor Pig, creating one of the absolute best eras in Gotham's history. Why does James Gunn need this comic? Because in the new DCU, Batman isn't going to be some lonely, isolated guy who just started his career. He has a massive Bat family backing him up. This comic shows James Gunn how to capture the dynamic between these family members, their sacrifices, and most importantly, the emotional growth and softening of Damian Wayne. If you want to see Damian at his most loyal and compelling as Robin, this comic is a total must-read before The Brave and the Bold hits theaters. 3. Batman, Court of Owls. All right, guys, let's take a step back from the Robin eras and move on to the comic that lays down the detective, mystery, and of course, the fantastical tone of the DCU. We're talking about the masterpiece, Batman, Court of Owls, released in 2011, written by the genius Scott Snyder, with legendary art by Greg Capullo. This comic kicked off Batman's storyline in the New 52 universe, and James Gunn has repeatedly teased and referenced the atmosphere of this exact book. The story of this comic shatters Batman's biggest claim. Bruce Wayne always proudly brags, "I am Gotham," believing he knows every single alley, history, and hideout of this city like the back of his hand. But everything changes when a body is found alongside a dagger bearing the symbol of an owl. Right in the middle of his investigation, Batman stumbles upon a terrifying, fragile truth. A secret, ancient, and filthy rich cult called the Court of Owls has been running Gotham from the shadows and from inside the very walls of the city for over a few centuries. They even had hidden nests inside the Wayne family's personal towers, and Bruce didn't have a single clue. The real hook of the story peaks when the court unleashes its Talons, an army of undead, highly trained assassins.
The Talons are humans revived through special tech and chemicals. They don't feel pain, and they won't stop until they slice their target into pieces. This comic is an absolute mental and physical ward for Batman. At one point, they trap him inside a massive underground labyrinth where Bruce Wayne wanders in total darkness for weeks without food or water, driven to the absolute brink of pure madness. In this storyline, you get to witness one of the darkest, most brutal beatdowns Batman has ever taken in history. But why does James Gunn need this comic for the new cinematic universe? James Gunn has explicitly stated that the DCU Batman is not a rookie. He's been wearing the mask and knowing his enemies in Gotham for years. Court of Owls is the perfect tool for James Gunn to show the audience that even a veteran, seasoned, and brilliant Batman can be completely blindsided by the hidden, supernatural history of his own city. This comic teaches filmmakers how to break Batman's ego and pride, forcing him to use the full potential of his army and family to save the city. If you want to know Batman's darkest and most deeply rooted modern enemy, you absolutely cannot miss this masterpiece. 4. Batman Under the Red Hood. Alright guys, up until now, we've seen Batman find his son, build his army, and fight Gotham's ancient cults. But James Gunn's DCU has one very important feature. This world has a crowded past, packed with tragedy. James Gunn straight up said that when we meet the new cinematic Batman, the previous Robins have already grown up and gone their own ways. This means Batman's biggest failure and darkest emotional wound has already happened. And that wound is none other than the masterpiece storyline Batman Under the Red Hood, written in 2005 by Judd Winnick. The story of this comic kicks off with the arrival of a masked, mysterious stranger named Red Hood on the streets of Gotham. But Red Hood isn't like your average run-of-the-mill villain or gangster. He didn't show up just to deal drugs or rob banks.
He's a top-tier strategist who takes absolute control of every mafia gang in the city and starts brutally slaughtering big-time drug lords and criminals. When Batman gets on the case, he realizes this guy knows every single combat tactic, secret code, and even the layout of the Batcave like the back of his hand. After a bunch of DNA tests and a long investigation, Bruce Wayne hits a fragile, maddening, and terrifying truth. Red Hood is actually Jason Todd, the second Robin, who was beaten to death with a crowbar by the Joker years ago, but is now back from the dead thanks to the Lazarus Pit. The philosophical clash and family drama between this father and son in this comic is pure watch-time gold. It'll completely blow your mind. The peak of the story is when Jason takes Joker hostage, shoves a gun into Batman's hand, and screams through tears. "I forgive you for not saving me. I get that the Joker took me away from you. But Bruce, look at me. Why is this piece of garbage still alive after what he did to me? How can you let him keep breathing and walking around? Where is the justice in that?" And Batman is forced to make the absolute hardest decision of his life between his ultimate red line, no killing, and saving his own son. Why does James Gunn need this comic for the new universe? Because having Damian Wayne right next to Jason Todd is absolute cinematic gold. Just imagine it. Two of the most violent, hot-headed, and vengeful members of the Bat family who both have a history of killing, trying to work together under Batman's shadow?
Under the Red Hood gives James Gunn the perfect blueprint to showcase the darkest psychological layers of Bruce Wayne and the consequences of his past mistakes, proving that being a hero in Gotham carries a bloody, heavy price tag. If you want to get to know the most complex and compelling anti-hero in the Bat family, this comic is an absolute must. 5. Batman: The Long Halloween. Alright guys, we've made it to the 5th and final comic on our must-read list, the legendary masterpiece, Batman: The Long Halloween, dropped in 1996, written by Jeff Loeb, with dark, minimalistic art by Tim Sale. The story of this comic takes place during Batman's early years of crime fighting, but what makes it so special is that it drags us right into a hyper-realistic, gritty, and mafia-driven Gotham. Everything starts when a mysterious serial killer named Holiday emerges. And what's his deal? This killer strikes only on official holidays, like Halloween, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and takes out members of Gotham's biggest mob families, namely the Falcone and Maroni crime syndicates. Now Batman has to team up with Commissioner James Gordon and the city's young district attorney, Harvey Dent, forming a three-man alliance to put an end to this bloody mob war. But why is this comic so dark and psychological? Because you get to watch the step-by-step downfall of Gotham. This story is literally the turning point where Gotham slips out of the hands of old-school suit-and-tie mobsters and falls into the hands of masked psychotic freaks like the Joker, Poison Ivy, and Mad Hatter. Most importantly, we witness the incredibly tragic, slow-burn transformation of Harvey Dent into Two-Face, a close friend turning into one of Bruce Wayne's worst nightmares right before his eyes. Batman fails and gets played multiple times along the way, and just like a top-tier detective novel, you won't be able to guess who the real killer is until the very last pages. Now, why does James Gunn need this comic for the new universe? Because James Gunn wants to prove to moviegoers that before Batman is a fantastical superhero hiding out with Superman, he is the world's greatest detective. The Long Halloween is the perfect model for James Gunn to keep Gotham's noir, detective, and gritty crime vibe alive, showing exactly how Batman uses his intellect, research, and forensic skills to untangle the city's darkest mysteries. If you want to experience the most authentic, compelling, and mysterious version of Gotham before the DCU kicks off, this comic is definitely the final piece and the king of your list. Alright guys, that wraps up the 5 comic book masterpieces. If you read these before the new DC movies drop, you're going to know exactly what's going on inside James Gunn's head, and you'll see just how deep, seasoned, and badass the new Dark Knight is going to be. As you can see, the future Batman isn't just a lone hero lurking in the shadows. He's going to be grinding through intense family drama, dealing with his hot-headed son Damian, managing the Bat family army, and facing philosophical clashes with the rest of DC's gods. Now the roadmap is officially in your hands, and you can start flipping through these incredible comics right today, and just enjoy the ride. But now it's your turn. Drop a comment down below and tell me, out of these 5 comics, which one is your absolute favorite, or which one have you already read?
Also, do you think James Gunn can actually deliver the best cinematic Batman in history by adopting these storylines or what? And out of all the Bat family members, who are you most excited to see in this new universe? Is it Damian Wayne or Red Hood?
I'm going to read and heart every single one of your comments, so definitely drop your thoughts down there so we can talk about it. If you enjoyed this breakdown and comprehensive guide, make sure to absolutely smash that like button and share this video with your fellow comic book nerds. And hey, if you haven't joined our family yet, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming awesome breakdowns and videos. Thank you so much for sticking around until the very end of this video, and a huge thank you for your incredible support. Until the next video, take care of yourselves, and for now, peace out.